Greetings and welcome to Ghost Stories of Washington, Part 18, Chapter 4, Stage Fright, Part 2. Ghosts crack them up. Mason's manifestation and Judy, Judy, Judy. Ghost cracks them up. Another haunted Seattle theater in the local landmark known as the Neptune, located in the U District near the University of Washington, and the ghosts there have actually been seen. A janitor reported watching the manifestation of a woman wearing a long dark-colored gown make its way across his line of vision. He knew for sure that he was not seeing a human being because the image did not walk on the floor, but floated approximately 5 inches above it. This may have been the same entity that Pam Sproul saw while she was manager of the Neptune Theater. Pam described what she had seen as a lady with a dark hair, although definitely not human. This time, however, the figure appeared to be dressed in white. Other workers have identified a presence that they call the Gray Lady. She may have been the ghost who was indirectly responsible for breaking the top of the candy counter. The incident occurred one night after a late showing of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Nighttime cleaners were taking a break. As they stood in the lobby sipping soft drinks, one of them caught sight of a girl in a gray dress. Excuse me. He called out to her to explain that the theater was closed and that she shouldn't be here still. The words were no sooner out of his mouth than the man realized that he could see right through the woman. A few seconds later, the apparition vanished. The poor worker was so terrified that he dropped the can of soda he had been holding, and in doing so, cracked the glass shelf that formed the top of the candy counter. Theater painter Jeff Curdy is very accepting of the ghosts at the Neptune, but he did readily admit to being somewhat unnerved by the distinct feeling of someone, an invisible someone, rushing past him. Mason's manifestation. The enormous Temple Theater on St. Helens Avenue in Tacoma has long been accepted as being home to a ghost. The building is a former Masonic lodge, so it is not surprising that people have only seen the apparition of men there. One specter, wearing a long robe, frequently stands at an upstairs window, looking out to the street below. He's been heard walking in otherwise empty building, and he is also frequently seen near the building's front doors. The staff is very aware of the haunting and refer to the ghost simply as Charlie. In our last story for today's shorter episode, Judy. The Roaring Twenties, when the grand plans to build the Mount Baker Theater in Bellingham began to unfold, it must have seemed that the region of vaudeville would go on forever. Despite the confidence in the then current vogue Mount Baker Theater architecture, R.C. Reamer had the foresight to include a project booth. His advanced planning was soon rewarded. Just months after the theater's official opening, management enticed audiences with a real novelty, a film called The Jazz Singer, the world's first talking motion picture. People were fascinated. The decline of both vaudeville and silent movies had begun. Less than 2 years later, the stock market crashed and the Great Depression struck, the final death blow to the art of vaudeville. The bright lights of opulent and extravagant vaudeville houses all over North America darkened forever. Fortunately for theater-goers and for ghosts, some of the grand old halls, the Mount Baker among them, have survived and been restored. This must be especially gratifying for Judy, the ghost haunting the Mount Baker, whose presence actually predates the existence of the theater. It is believed that Judy lived and died in the house that once stood on the site. She was apparently killed in a fire that destroyed her family's home, and her spirit has been haunting the theater from its very first day. Former house manager Margaret McKay had first-hand experience with Judy that she'll never forget. Current house manager Anna Marie said Margaret often described a walk through the upstairs of the lobby, during which an incredibly cold blast of air seemed to move right through her. Margaret stopped walking for a minute, and the lights flickered at the same time. Perhaps that was Judy's way of wishing the house manager a good night. On another occasion, Margaret was actually able to photograph Judy's presence. Members of the camera crew from a local television show were not so fortunate while they were filming in the theater. They did, however, record the explorations of the physical sensitive woman whom they had brought with them. She said that there were indeed a troupe of ghosts in the theater. Anna Marie explained, "They are down on the main stage. Stage left, front, downstage. They're just kind of hanging out with us." This finding was not much of a surprise, as others had sensed much more than just Judy's presence in the grand old hall. Still, Judy continues to be the most noticeable phantom. Judging from some of her other actions, it's probably fair to guess that Judy was a high-spirited young woman. She particularly delights in making herself known to male projectionists and stagehands. Judy cannot be lonely in her theatrical hereafter, because the psychic who visited the Mount Baker found the entire troupe of ghosts on the stage. The staff at the theater not only accepted their ghostly inhabitants, but they actually speak of the spooks with evident affection. It seems that the Mount Baker Theater and its entities are happily and inextricably entwined with one another forever. Hopefully you enjoyed this edition of Ghost Stories of Washington. Chapter 4, Stage Fright, Part 2. Ghost cracks them up, Mason's manifestation, and Judy, oh, Judy. Where are you? Hopefully you enjoyed this. We'll see you in our next episode of Ghost Stories of Washington, Chapter 4, Part 3, the next time we see you. Take care. Have a wonderful and blessed day. And be safe out there.